Hello everyone, this is Lekha bringing to you the weekly news podcast at Socian Classes. We'll be picking up a few relevant topics for the week and then discussing them. Let's get started. In today's series of news podcasts, we will be discussing Cyclone Nivar, the Kerala Police Act, the ordinance which has taken place, the sale of future retail, but we will be focusing on the Competition Commission of India, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, and legal metrology, the issue that has taken place recently with respect to Amazon. So the first article we will be discussing is related to Cyclone Nivar. Now, the Cyclone Nivar is a cyclonic storm. It's a tropical storm, that is, it takes place near the equator, which is consisting of warm waters. It is a very severe cyclone. Cyclones are categorized from level 1 to level 5 based on wind speed and the destruction they cause. So now this is the second cyclone this year in the Bay of Bengal after Cyclone Amphan, which had taken place in May. In the Arabian Sea during this year itself, Cyclone Nisarga had taken place. In the last few years, there were a lot of cyclones, especially in 2019. There was Cyclone Vayu, Maha, Bulbul and Fani, to give a few examples. Now, Cyclone Nivar has caused heavy landfall near Puducherry, and this has also led to torrential rains in the region. This is a depression that has taken place in this particular region. There's heavy rainfall in the south coastal AP, Puducherry, Tamil Nadu, and around 40 lakh people have been evacuated in these regions. How are cyclones formed? Cyclones are formed when the water from the sea evaporates and there is an area of low pressure because of the evaporation. Because of the low pressure, winds from surrounding areas come into this region, and while the water is evaporating, the water in this particular region, which is in the air, form clouds, and now the clouds and winds together circulate and circulate at high speeds and become a cyclone. Now the middle of the cyclone, which is called the eye, is a low pressure area which is very calm, and everything else is high speeds. And usually a tropical storm is decided when it's at a speed of 39 kilometers per hour. To become a cyclone, it needs to reach 119 kilometers per hour. One good thing about the equatorial region is that the Coriolis force is very less, which makes a cyclone more intense. From 5 degree north and 5 degree south of the equator, this force is almost negligible, which is why our cyclones are little less in intensity compared to the others. Now we will come to the amendment to Kerala Police Act. There was a controversial ordinance passed by the Kerala government recently, which deals with crimes committed through social media. And there was a lot of backlash against this ordinance, which is why it is currently withdrawn, and there's going to be a lot of political discussion with opposition parties as well. Now, what is the amendment to the Kerala Police Act? For one, police is a state subject under 7th schedule of the Constitution. Now, this amendment punishes any kind of communication, including statements, articles, social media posts, etc., which threaten, abuse, humiliate or defame a person or class of persons. And this has led, the punishment for this is up to 3 years of imprisonment or a fine up to 10,000 rupees. And this is controversial because even sharing of these posts will lead to liability. And this since this is very vague and it doesn't specify exactly what kind of posts, it can be used very arbitrarily. Now, the same reasons for the backlash. The provisions are vague, it does not specify. It's liable to subjective and arbitrary application by the police. If they have any issue with a particular person, they can pick them up. And it would criminalize innocent speech, as just thoughts would be criminalized now. Basically in this, the sender or the poster has to know that it is false. But even sometimes knowing and having an opinion which is considered to be defamatory or having threatening or abusing or humiliating or defaming a person or a class of persons now again will lead to this. So this is very problematic. So currently it is withdrawn, and they have said that they will discuss with other political parties and then make a decision on this ordinance. Now, Future Group big news. CCI has approved Reliance Future Retail's business deal. Last week we had discussed that Reliance had bought Future Retail and Amazon had a problem with this and had filed to SEBI and CCI about this combination. Combination is nothing but an amalgamation, merger or acquisition of two companies. But for this we will only be discussing Competition Commission because it is relevant for UPSC. Now, what is the Competition Commission of India? It is a body corporate. That means it can sue and be sued. It can hold property in its own name and it can have its own signature. The head office of the Competition Commission is at Delhi, but they also have other offices in different states. The minimum number of people in the commission are minimum of 2 and maximum of 6, one of whom will be a chairman. The chairman must be qualified to be the judge of a high court or has been a judge of a high court. They must have 15 years of experience in the fields of accountancy, trade, competition, law, finance or any of the other relevant fields. And all the members of the Competition Commission are appointed by the central government on the recommendation of a selection committee. The selection committee will consist of the CJI of India, Supreme Court of India or his nominee, and two people of experience in this particular fields who are excellent, and the law minister and the Ministry of Corporate Affairs will also send their own representatives. Usually they are the ministers of law and ministers of corporate affairs. Now they have this, the Competition Commission has the same powers are vested in a civil court. So they can have their own procedure and do not need to follow CPC procedures. Now basically CCI can suo moto or in reference by an informant commence any inquiry. CCI is of the opinion that if prima facie case exists, they can take it up. They can direct the Director General, who is also appointed under this Act, for the case for inquiring and investigating any case, to conduct investigation. Now they conduct an investigation and they report findings to the CCI. Now the DG's report gives if no contravention exists or a contravention exists. If contravention exists, CCI conducts further investigation, or if there is no contravention, it invites objection from parties from within up to 60 days. Now, what are the powers of the CCI? They inquire into anti-competitive agreements and abuse of dominant position. Earlier, there was the MRTP Act, which was repealed, and after that the Competition Act has come into place. In the MRTP Act, being dominant itself was a problem. In the Competition Act of 2002, the abuse of this dominant position is the problem. Now, anti-competitive agreements are anything which will affect consumers and wants to remove competition in the particular industry. Now, how do they determine this? They see if any agreement has an adverse effect on competition, appreciable adverse effect. They also award compensation, interim relief, they issue cease and desist orders. They impose fines, order division of dominant undertakings and order demergers. They also regulate combination. Combination again is a merger, acquisition or amalgamation of two different companies. Now, the Competition Act 2002. It seeks to modernize the competition regime and provides for the repeal of the MRTP Act. The objectives of the Act will throw light on the necessity of this new Act. Basically, the MRTP Act was enacted at that point because of the license Raj system. After that, it was realized that it is more detrimental to competition and allowing of new entrants into the market, which is why they have repealed it and come up with this Act. The objectives of this Act are to prohibit anti-competitive agreements, to prohibit the use of dominant position. Dominant position is just an industrial strength, that is, they are present in the market irrespective of competition and they don't affect them, and they directly affect their consumers and their competitors. They prohibit anti-competitive agreements, that is agreements to special dealings, special supply, tie-in agreements, and all such other agreements which are detrimental to the consumer or increase costs or regulate supply. And this also allows for establishment of Competition Commission of India and to regulate combinations including mergers. One thing we must keep in mind is they regulate combinations, they do not prohibit them, but MRTP Act had prohibited. Now this is with regards to PMLA. This is because these are 4 different articles which have come during this week, and there are so many cases with regards to PMLA, which is why we've decided to discuss the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Now, Money Laundering Act is basically the conversion of tainted money into white money or legal money. That is, proceeds of crime or any illegal activity have been converted into the normal source of money and integrated into the economy. There are basically 3 stages in a typical money laundering scheme. First is the placement scheme, second is the layering, and third is the integration. That is, dirty money integrates into the financial system by wire transfers, which is broken down into small amounts. Then it is layered, transfer of funds between various offshore and onshore accounts and buying of different securities in different countries or so. And then it's integrated into the normal scheme by purchase of luxury assets, investments, etc. There are 3 different stages. These 3 stages have been determined in the 18th report of the Standing Committee on Finance and in the Supreme Court judgment of Muhammad Arif versus Enforcement Directorate, Union of India. Now, the definition of money laundering is, it's the illegal process of making large amounts of money generated by a criminal activity. Like examples are drug trafficking, terrorist funding, and they appear to have come from a legitimate source. That is, they have laundered it. Like in a laundry where you send clothes to whitewash or clean your clothes, this is the same. The money from criminal activity is considered dirty and the process launders it to make it look clean. Now the PMLA Act has been enforced, and the objective of this act are to prevent and control money laundering, to confiscate and seize the property obtained from the laundered money, to deal with any other issue connected with money laundering in India. So the government has appointed directors in order to enforce this act, who have powers to seize, investigate, etc. They do not follow the provisions of CPC with respect to this. Once any director has seized something, they give the property to the collector. They make a information report to the collector, who is the adjudicating authority, first adjudicating authority. Then they will decide if there is a case and it's a case of money laundering or not. Any seized item can be in the possession of the government for 180 days until they decide if it's a case of money laundering or not. Now, some provisions and some problems with this are, since 2015, any amendment to this act is being amended as a money bill, and this goes against the Article 109 of the Constitution, where ordinary bills amendment has, the provisions for ordinary bill amendment has been given. Mr. Jairam Ramesh, who is an MP of Rajya Sabha, had challenged this before the Supreme Court, since this is unconstitutional and this is not the way democracy should be run. The reason we have the PMLA today is because of a 1990 UN declaration, and they held a special session in 1998 for making a law in this regard. Let's see what this is. The UN program. The Law Enforcement, Organized Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Unit of the United Nations Office of Drug and Crime Proceeds. This office and this unit basically enforce money laundering. They carry out they have a global program against this. It was established in the year 1997. This is in response to a mandate given to this particular office because of Convention Against Illicit Trafficking in Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances of 1988. The unit's mandate was strengthened in 1998 by a political declaration and measures for countering money laundering. This particular convention is also known as the Vienna Convention. Now, this has now broadened the scope to cover all serious crime, that is combating terror financing as well. Now, the broad objective of the global program is to strengthen the ability of member states to implement measures against money laundering and the financing of terrorism and to assist them. Now coming to our other article about legal metrology. This is basically a fine imposed on Amazon for not providing details of country of origin on its platform. Now coming to the other article, it's about Amazon having to pay a fine of rupees 75,000 by Consumer Ministry. This is because they have not provided the details of country of origin on its platform, because they have failed to follow the legal metrology package commodity rules of 2018, where goods displayed on an e-commerce platform have to have declarations regarding the what goes on, like what is the quantity, quality, potency or any other relevant article, including the country of origin, which is very important. Now the legal metrology department has given the option to compound the offence, and if they don't want to compound the offence, then they will have to pay a heavier fine and proceedings will be taken up. Now the failure to give a reply within 7 days will lead to prosecution. Now in this particular article, we will basically discuss what is legal metrology and how it is helpful to the consumer. Now the branch of knowledge that concerns weights and measures is technically known as metrology, and all the legal aspects and technical and statutory aspects of it is known as legal metrology. In basic form, metrology is a science of measurement. Now why is this important? Because it's a potential instrument of consumer protection, because it gives accuracy of measurements and it gives protection against safeguarding the health and welfare of consumers. Now the International Organization of Legal Metrology is an intergovernmental treaty organization. It was established in 1955 in order to promote the global harmonization of legal metrology procedures. This is important because in business transactions a lot of measurements go on in order to prevent unfair trade practices and also to help consumers have a sense of safety of using building confidence in the region for this particular set of products or commodities. All of this is needed, and in order to enhance international satisfaction of goods also this is required. So in terms of this offence which is currently taken place, it is punishable under the sections for the institution of prosecution. It can be compounded or payment of credit to government for any sum which may be prescribed. However, the director or legal metrology officer, as may be specially authorized by this behalf, may compound the offences punishable. So basically under this act, legal metrology officers are appointed by the central government by notification in the Official Gazette of India. Now also the section 49 provides that when an offence has been committed by a company, the person who has been nominated to be in charge and responsible to the company for the conduct of the business in this particular regard for legal metrology will be held responsible. If there is no such person nominated, then all the person who were responsible for conduct of business, that is the directors, will be held responsible. This is so in case of almost all the offences which are committed by a company. So legal metrology is very important because it defines the units of measurement, the methods of measurement and the instruments. It regulates all of these, and because it also has a consumer view, it has a new rules which incorporate that all instruments, units or methods or anything which is sold which with the measurements have to have certain declarations for consumer protection, that is quantity, these are some examples, quality, potency, strength, date of manufacture, etc. Now, coming to the snippet section of our video, the AstraZeneca vaccine. In the last 2 weeks podcast, we have discussed the other 2 vaccines which have come up, but this is the AstraZeneca vaccine, or commonly known as the Oxford vaccine. The benefits of this are that it is faster to scale up, it is cheaper to make and easier to distribute than the other 2 vaccines of Moderna and of Pfizer. They are saying that 200 million doses by the end of 2020 will be available, 4 times as much as Pfizer. So this will be easily available for distribution. It is 70% effective on an average, that is on the first dose, but it rises to 90% efficiency if given in 2 doses, 1 half and 1 full. So this for India, it's supposed to be helpful because it is cheaper and it is easier to assemble and distribute. So they may consider taking this up. But the only problem is it requires 2 doses for a 90% efficiency, but this sale of share prices have gone down after this particular news had come out. Now, last week we had discussed the Special Marriage Act provisions. So now the UP government has passed an ordinance where religious conversion for marriage is a non-bailable offence. Not only for marriage, but if a conversion is done through misrepresentation, fraud, coercion, allurement, force or undue influence, there will be a 10-year jail term which is maximum. And this is a term has been given called love jihad, which is an unrecognized term, but they are saying that this is a form of jihad to convert people into different religions. Mass conversions are also banned and there is a hefty fine for the same. Conversion of women for marriage will declare the marriage null and void, and there are even more heavy penalties for converting an SC/ST person into another religion for marriage. Now, in this particular week, 43 Chinese apps have been banned. This is in consonance with the 69A of IT Act 2000, and under this provision they have banned 43 because they have said it is prejudicial to sovereignty and integrity of India, and it is for the defense of India and security of state and public order. Earlier in this year, in June, they had banned 59 apps and now 113. The latest apps that have been banned are AliExpress, Alipay, etc. These are all the apps which are banned, like TikTok, Club Factory, etc., WeChat, etc. Now, the focal point, the map shows the village of Pangda, this particular map. So basically, China has claimed, the Chinese media, that a border village has been built, and the picture released by the media shows that it is in the Doklam area which is contested. This is the village of Pangda. The area is east of India-Bhutan-China tri-junction on Doklam Plateau, and which was the site of the 72-day standoff in 2017. The Chinese media has said that it has 27 households, public square, village committee, health room, police room, kindergarten, supermarket and a plastic runway. But the Bhutanese officials have said there is no village inside of their territory that is built by China, and that the particular image released is wrong. But this is also very worrisome because of China's land grabbing tactics, and it's likely that they will be causing another tension very soon, and this is what is anticipated by both India and Bhutan. SC reserves order on in-service quota. 50% in-service reservations, basically this is the issue in contention, and SC reserves its order for Tamil Nadu and Kerala, which have wanted to implement this in super specialty courses for in-service doctors in government colleges. So now the SC has decided that they will review this, and states have basically, because of a constitutional bench judgment earlier this year, states have the power to provide for an entry of in-service doctors, which is the previous judgment recently. So they cite this, and also earlier judgment in 2009 had said that only on merit it will be given the seats. So now this has reserved its order on this particular issue, and this is going to be very important when it comes out because it will be almost a landmark. This is a wrap on Your News podcast. Please tune in next week for another segment, and while you're doing that, you may also log into our website www.sourcingclasses.com for further updates and other information on our daily news diary segment. Now please like, share and subscribe.